All right, we got a big SEC home win against Florida tonight. 12-point victory. Matt Donaldson, our co-host, was in the house to enjoy the jungle. We're still undefeated in regulation, undefeated in the SEC. Still haven't done a loss podcast. Now, this one was a weird one. We'll have a lot to talk about on this one. Frustrating game to win by 12 in the SEC, but still feel frustrated, even though we played well for the most part. Matt, I think an interesting thing to say on this one is the MVP is going to be a weird one. I think I need you to talk me into somebody because it was such a team effort and so much depth. And the referees almost deserved the MVP in a bad way because they really tell the story of the game. So I think it's going to be an interesting conversation to have to try to pick someone on our team that's the MVP when it ultimately came down to how great the team responded to the adversity of the referees.
It's a great point. We've been prepping for it. We knew it would happen. Maybe a little surprising that it happens at home in this kind of game. A lot went wrong. A lot of it was our fault. A lot of it was their fault, the refs. But again, the value of an 11-man rotation and having guys that you can trust. And there was my vote. Well, I don't know who my vote is. I want to talk it out. We need to talk it out. But
I think we can agree that overall the MVP of the game is the depth and the entire team and how we responded. But I think we should have to pick a player that, because it's not going to be easy this time. So I don't think you can just pick by points. No one scored a triple double. No one made like that one play necessarily. Like and there's different portions of the game that it could have went in another direction with any MVP. So I think let's hear it. Who do you start with? How do you start?
So there was one guy I thought that was unaffected by the chaos. There was one guy who looked comfortable. He didn't make mistakes. He played very solid when we really needed him. And it was my guy, Jaylen Williams. He is a candidate. He ended
I want to give it to him. I really do, because he started out so strong, but he disappeared a lot in the second half, I feel like.
Well,
but he came out strong, and thank God. And you can almost make another argument that it's like threefold. He came out really strong before the foul trouble or anything in the first half, and it was like great. He's driving the ball. He hit a 3 with a foul, I believe. He did some really good things in the first half. But then also he had to play a ton of minutes because Jabari was in foul trouble for a lot of the game. And so that's big. He played so many minutes having to play defense, play offense, all that. But he did disappear at times down the stretch.
Well, he didn't play when Jabari was in. So Jabari played most of the last 10 or 12 minutes of this game. And that's why he wasn't there. He was crucial in the first half when Jabari went out with 2 early fouls. He was crucial early in the second half when Jabari got his 3rd right away. And ultimately, he is the only truly efficient player tonight do you get what I'm saying? Like, he was the only guy who didn't feel rushed. He didn't feel out of control at any point.
There was one time, if we're going to be nitpicky about it or whatever, he does this like every game or so. He tries to dribble just like a couple seconds too long. And you can tell like this guy has got decent handles for his size. But tonight he did like a crazy spin move past a guy at the half court and then immediately threw a pass like straight to the Florida team. And those are the kind of moments he's got to cut out to be as efficient as I think he can be, as good as I think he can be.
Yeah, but he drove to the basket, which you wanted to see. His shots looked great. He was 5 for 6 from the field. He only missed 1 shot. And that was a 3. He was 1 for 2 there, made all his free throws. Great block towards the end of the first half. And I think we don't win, but you can make that argument for a lot of players. We don't win without his contributions, but there's a lot of other guys. I would throw out, here's my other candidates, and then I'll let you opine. Alan Flanagan, crucial, only 8 points, only played 20 minutes. That's where they wanted him, I think. He played more than they wanted against LSU. 4 or 5, though, and all of them were massive buckets. Like you always talk about Flanagan's the guy, go downhill and get a bucket when things aren't good. Things were not good on offense after the first 10 minutes of this game. And he did that. He
was this close to being, in my opinion, I want to select him, but because he played limited minutes and did not score, we scored 8 points. So it's not really like he was 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th scorer on this team for this one. But you're right. They were major buckets. I'll let you finish on who your next one is or whatever. But
Jaylen, Alan Flanagan, And by the way, just to point out, Jabari and Jaylen and Flanagan played the same amount of minutes.
Wow.
So we had some weird stuff going on with fouls. The other guys, KD had 23, played much better than he has the last few weeks. We asked for it. It was one of my pregame thoughts. Really thrilled. We don't win without him. Bruce said that after the game. So he's an option. Jabari, in his limited minutes, hit crucial shots at pivotal times. I don't want to give it to him.
I think after thinking about it, I think you can include him though, because I wasn't even going to include him because he was out for so long. But down the stretch, when he hit that big three, he was out for a long period of time with a third foul, I believe. They finally put him in with like 8 minutes left after what felt like, we'll talk about this stretch where it felt like we were just holding on for dear life for a little bit there. Jabari came in. I think they hit a three right before that. Jabari comes in. It's like, oh my God, this nightmare scenario is happening. They finally worn us down. Jabari goes in with like 8 minutes left and hits a huge three that basically took the momentum right back. That was probably the biggest moment in the game, honestly. I mean, he's done that so many times now.
Yeah, he's the run stopper. He and Flanagan having both of those guys, of course. But anyway, let's get MVP done, then we'll talk about everything else. Those are my four. So KD, Jabari, Alan Flanagan, and Jaylen. So what do you think?
I think part of the argument with Jabari that I was going to get to is that he was out for so long, you can't really give it to him. But you can say those fouls were 2 or 3 of them were crap. In fact, one of them was really bad at the start of the second half where he didn't even touch the guy. He hit the back of the board when they showed the replay. He ran so angry to the other side of the court and he was yelling at someone. And thank God he was yelling at Bruce, kind of an exasperation kind of thing. Not really yelling at Bruce, but like much better to like vent in that direction than any of the referees. And he ran all the way to the other side of the court. And he was right. It was a bull crap foul that when he was already had 2 fouls on him. And some of those fouls in the first half were even a little shaky. They were not big, hard fouls or whatever. So that happened. But you got to say that when he was in, because he can't control the fact that a ref's going to call that when it's a bull crap foul. Yep. When he was in, he played really well. This could have been a game that he would have an easy MVP because he would have played those extra minutes and would have kept playing the way he was. So I would say I want to give him a little bit with that,
But again, if we're going to hold that against him, he and Jaylen and Flanagan played the same amount of minutes. So does that leave KD?
Well, so this is what I'll say about KD. I do not want to give it to KD, but even though it seems like it would be an easy one, he scored 23 points, but the way he played is still not the way we need him to play. Sonny's said a couple of times the last 2 broadcasts, which I've been listening to the radio broadcasts a lot more, which can be frustrating at times to try to get the timing, but you get a lot out of it. Sonny keeps saying KD needs to score to be able to score more. And he actually plays better defense when he's scoring. It's kind of sad. You kind of want to not sad, but you want to get him into a role at this point. Now that Flanagan's back, we got to get him into a role that's not him shooting contested threes from NBA range and driving when he's not supposed to. He's got to be able to listen to Bruce. He's got to be able to do this all in the flow of the game because he's got the talent. So it's hard to give this to him because it worked out tonight. He hit those threes in the face of the other guy. That some of the drives got the foul calls that he needed because the refs were calling a lot of fouls. Some of the drives he finished that were risky that he shouldn't have done. So it's hard to give it to him because if he played this exact same game 10 times in a row, like 7 or 8 of those, it doesn't work out for him. It doesn't look good. He misses those 2 or 3 threes and we're like mad at him again. So I need him to fit into that role. And also his points that came, those threes were really big at the time, but they weren't. He kind of got a lot of his points in play in the flow that weren't big moments necessarily. A lot of stuff down the stretch he got points on. Now, everything was big this game, but anyways, my final thing after saying all that about KD, actually, you know what? Let me hear what you think about KD in that situation, why I don't want to pick him as MVP, even though he scored 9 more points than anybody else on the team.
Should we include Wendell Green? Sorry, I got distracted.
This is the thing with the depth, man. I don't think we should include Wendell. He had some big moments. He had some of those NBA threes that were huge.
5 turnovers.
Turned the ball over, 5 turnovers, had some really weird moments. He's still great. It's just great. It's great we can go down this list and find so many different people in a game that was extremely frustrating, in a game where Kessler and Jabari were out for so long. And I think a weaker team would have lost this game, and a team from another year would have lost this game. And we didn't because these guys, everybody had their little moments,
Yeah, Yeah. Well, sorry, back to KD. I got distracted. I totally agree with you. I think this was a game where a lot of people, we've joked about KD, he's just never scared. Even if he has zero reason to be confident the way he's been playing the last few weeks. I will say, I thought he got in a rhythm early by taking good shots. He had a wide open three. He made a great pass to somebody. It was his only assist of the night, apparently, but he made a great unselfish pass to somebody.
He starts out all right, right? He started out 2 games in a row with some good passes, and then it disappears somewhere.
Look, he still is going to have, he's always going to have 5 or 10 possessions that you're just like frustrating. But this was much more the KD that we need to moving forward, in my opinion. I saw a lot of growth there. His attitude, I was there at the game, pregame, much more engaged, much better communication, I think, non-verbally with his teammates. Granted, the game was going his way today, so that helps. I still give him credit, though, for as bad as it's been the last few weeks. Look, the 3 he hit, yeah, you're right. Some of his points were not as meaningful, but the main 3, other than Jabari's, I think it was a 4-point game, and he just hit someone in his face. And then Wendell hit one right after that stretched it to 10 at the last timeout. And that's why Auburn won this game.
We almost have this frustrated look on our face, or at least I do on this if you're watching on YouTube. And Bruce Pearl had the exact same frustrated look. They had a great slow-mo on TV. I don't know if you got to see it on the Jumbotron or not. Probably not, because they don't want to show this. But Bruce is yelling, drive, drive, drive. He shoots that 3, and Bruce goes, like, and then he hits it and he goes, all right. The most, I've seen him do that a couple times with KD and some other players too. When that long 3 goes in, he usually gets pretty excited. He usually does a face where he's like, oh yeah, he made it. All right. You could tell this time he's getting to a point where he's just the most begrudging, when do I try to fix this guy? Do I just keep rolling the dice with him because he keeps making things happen? Yeah.
Well, Bruce is such a player's coach that it's actually shocking that he is approaching it like that, in the sense of showing that much emotion. Because usually Bruce is he'll let you shoot. My dad and I were talking about that.
He shoots a lot of contested stuff that's not even in the flow at all. It'd be one thing if he got the ball and immediately shot it out. He gets it and he holds onto it, stares down the other player and shoots it early in the offense. It worked this game. My
biggest complaint is still that he is driving to get fouled and not to make the shot. That's still a big concern of mine. But I think Auburn made really good adjustments attacking the basket, and KD was part of that. When we got 6 fouls in the first 4 minutes of the second half, our guys started going downhill, and he was 6 for 8 at the free throw line. So he made his free throws. That's been one of my frustrations. He tries to get fouled and then misses his free throw. I want to give KD the MVP. And because he did a lot of the things that I wanted to see. But for me, as a basketball guy, Jaylen's hard to pass up. But I think KD's probably the guy.
So who are you leaning the most to right now? And I want to see if I could talk you into another guy. You're leaning either Jaylen or KD. Which one?
I'm leaning KD.
You're leaning KD. All right. I want to pick Flanagan. Even though he only scored 8 points and played limited minutes, he got those points that we've been wanting him to get all year, the stuff we've been waiting for him to do when the game was the toughest. And when you're saying that KD 3 was the biggest stuff, I think the biggest one's when we didn't score for 4 minutes at a time, when it really looked bad with the referees and everything. Finally, they said, work the ball to Flanagan. And you could tell there's still, we worried a little bit when he's gone for so long. If the team got such good chemistry without him, they wouldn't know what to do when he's back in. There's so many guys on this team that can score. At some point in the middle of the second half, Bruce or whoever told them it's time to get Flanagan the ball, and they worked him the ball, and he went down there and drove and got those hard points and got 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. Well, I guess I'm saying field goals, 2, 4, 6 points or so, doing those hard drives in the worst part of the game that kept us with a cushion to where KD could hit that 3 and Wendell could hit that other 3 to make it back to a 10-point lead.
We needed all of it. And if you're looking big picture, Auburn won this game because they shot the ball well, which feels weird after watching that game. Auburn shot 54%, 44% from 3, 77% from the line. So everybody hit shots and big shots. Our problems, which we'll talk about, were turnovers and second chance points for Florida. But I am willing to me, I can't argue. I mean, you're right.
Am I holding back from giving KD that just because he's doing things still that we're frustrated with, and I should just get over that, you think? And I'm like giving too much to Flanagan because he did the things I think within, it comes down to roles, right? Flanagan did the thing. Like, this team has so many good players. We need them at this point or at some point soon in the season to really specialize into their roles. We gave them this time to like figure out what their roles are. Now to have like the greatest team possible we can, they need to know their roles, and Flanagan's role is to go get those tough points when we need them to. And KD needs to pull back a little bit on those hard like threes that are contested. We don't need him to be that guy that's making plays like that. We have enough guys that the plays can come to the player. So I'm frustrated with him, and I'm probably happier than I should be with Flanagan, and more frustrated than I should be with KD.
I would agree with that. I think we just haven't seen Flanagan. He's played 3 games now, and that's
what made me so happy. He hasn't played as much, and I was worried after a game 2, maybe he doesn't have that anymore. Maybe he's not gonna be that role. To see him so effortlessly drive the ball like that in the toughest moments was like, yes, exactly the X factor we were missing. It's so.
But I think that's because that's been your narrative for the whole offseason since he got hurt. So, but you're right. I just don't know if this game. I'm not disagreeing that I think he had 3 baskets in the second half that were just tough, going inside, making tough shots, and it looked like vintage Flanagan. It really did. But I think when you look at the free throws, the threes, the energy, the fearlessness, the mistakes, sure. But hey, by the way, here's what's going to do it. Here's what's going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the turnover column for KD Johnson.
0. Wow. Is that real though? I guess that's real.
I don't know if he's had a game all year with 0 turnovers. I'd have to go look.
He thrives on the chaos, Here's a question I'll ask you. I think you've won me over with the turnover. But the question I want to ask is, all right, I tell you before, like, now that we've watched the game, without the points or whatever, you can't just like take points out or whatever. If I said, okay, for whatever reason, you can't have Flanagan or you couldn't have KD, one of these guys you have to choose now that they're going to be out of the game before the game even starts, who do you pick?
For tonight or going forward?
For tonight. I tell you before the game starts, when I'm like, how it played out this time, but now I got to tell you that you got to play this game without Flanagan or you got to play this game without KD.
I would want to play without KD, but that shouldn't affect.
Even knowing that he could potentially score 23 like this, but you think we could lose without Flanagan in that game, even with the way KD was playing? You think we might lose if Alan Flanagan didn't have those important moments where he went and scored those points?
I think we would have lost without either one of them.
Okay. Yeah, true. You might be right.
And I mean, I hear your point, but
I'm just trying to get to the root of MVP. Like, who really, like, they're both did. You're right. They both did.
This is the worst one. I don't know why we've talked about this for 15.
I think it tells the story of the game. I think that's part of the fun of MVPs. It helps tell the like narrative of this game.
But like, honestly, this is the hardest one because on one hand, everybody kind of struggled in their own ways. It wasn't pretty. It was ugly, and we still won by double digits against an SEC team that I think is good enough to be in the tournament for sure. But you're right. You started. It's hard to give it to one guy, and I think we're talking around all the way. I wanted to get my dad's opinion. My dad's here. He's going to join the podcast later.
Let's do it. Bring him on. He's the tiebreaker.
Well, you can either come on the Zoom or just say who would you pick to be the? Because my dad watches a lot of the games, but he's not necessarily like.
And just so the podcast knows, Matt is in Auburn at the game. He got to go to the game, and his dad has a great vintage jersey. He's going to show it now. Number 34. What year is that, you think?
That's probably a Kyle Davis jersey from like the early 2000s.
I tried to friend Kyle Davis on Instagram. I want to talk to him, the leading block guy. More blocks. 3 seasons in a row that he has more blocks than anyone else. So if anybody knows Kyle Davis, we would love to talk to him now that Kessler.
That's my guess. He's saying it's Charles, but I want to say we got
34.
That. I know it's 34, but I think Kyle Davis was 34. Somebody needs to fact check.
They haven't retired Chucks yet.
Yeah.
We're getting way off topic. I need a concise, either KD or Flanagan, and maybe like a little bit of why you think that.
I think, although there were a few times when KD made some odd, aggressive decisions to attack that he clearly did not have a shot, but he did it anyway. But if I get past that overall impact, I think I have to go with KD. I think so.
We're not listening to your dad anymore. We're past. his opinion is gone. No, I'm kidding. All right.
Allen, in the first half, I didn't think Allen looked good, but in the second half, he came on. He played a good second half. So,
all right, we did it, guys.
End to end, KD, I thought probably had the biggest impact. I don't know how many total points he had.
23.
Yeah, 23 points. So.
All right, that's it. MVP.
I can go away.
All right, thanks,
we'll
Dad.
bring it back at the end. Everybody's listening. We're gonna bring his dad back at the end and talk some old school basketball stuff. But all right, fair enough. That's a good coin flip there. KD, you get it. I hope he can continue to play like that and make slightly better decisions while also scoring the points he's scoring right now. So,
yeah. All right, what else? What else stood out
is.
to you from this one?
The question I want to ask that I think will help guide some of this conversation a little bit and kind of talk about why I think it might be is, do you think this is the best win we have gotten all year?
No.
Which one? What do you think's bigger than this one?
LSU.
Just from beating a ranked opponent that's pretty good after they've beaten some other teams too since then.
I just think we looked more like ourselves. Now, look, having said that, I think maybe your point here is if you're this good of a team, and I think everybody would agree, part of this gives credit to Florida. I do want to get into some of the stuff they were doing because Florida caused a lot of our problems. But it is eye-opening that they somehow won this game by double digits with the way Auburn played. I know it was at home. I know it got close.
That's what I'm getting to, is the way we had to fight through adversity in this one. Is I know LSU is a better opponent, better ranked, better for our national perspective, but the way we had to do this one, and we've talked about that with some of the other things too, like you almost wish you could have some more close games and things to like put your team through certain scenarios by the time March comes along. The way we had to win this with all the foul trouble on our two best players on Kessler and Jabari and showing how much depth we had and the frustration against playing this, even though it was at home, I think this is a bigger win. I think it really, it's not going to be seen in the national perspective. It's not going to be seen on the stat sheet necessarily, but I think overall this shows that this team can win any way it needs to. In the worst case scenario, this team can still pull out a win.
A lot of people will say it's not necessarily like how good your team is, it's how many different ways can you win. And you're right. This is another example of, so we've kind of seen Auburn blow out teams. We saw them go on the road and they got punched against St. Louis. They had to battle back and come back. The UConn game was it was impressive how they raised their game with a ranked team at that point in the season. The LSU game was just a track meet that was classic Auburn style against somebody playing similar to them. We had the South Carolina physical battle that we passed. And then this one, Florida's just a little different.
Did you bring up Syracuse with the zone defense and everything?
I mean, there's so many examples. So the fact that we can keep finding ways to win, you're absolutely right. But it's hard for me to watch that and say that it's more impressive than the blitz we put on LSU. Because LSU,
that's part of our personality, right? Is getting that. Man, we've started off so many games now this year, almost every single one of them up on a big lead, blitzing them, running so fast, like doing our kind of style. I think it's even more impressive when the other team has a big fight back. And really, it wasn't the other team as much as the referees in this game. I know everybody will get into the referees in a minute, but I think this is the most impressive win all year because we showed that with our best two players out, we can still win against a decent Florida team. And it was at home. We still pulled it out, and we did it when we could have just given up on the refs calling things. We could have had it. I think that's part of the reason I keep talking about Flanagan is because we talk about how many different players there are on this team. We just proved out another one. We had a guy like KD that scored the way he did. We've seen some games like the South Carolina game where window went off, even though Jabari was out and not scoring a ton. This game, we want to say, just going down the list of players that each one of these players can be their night. But to see it happen where things are all going wrong and to see that basically we have check marked. Flanagan was kind of the last one to check mark to make sure we all had a lot of faith in him, but he was gone for a long time with an injury thing. I feel like we check marked another player that can go get us something when we need it. And that's insane how many we have. Walker's one of those guys. Jabari's one of those guys. Katie Johnson's one of those guys. Jaylen almost can be one of those guys. He was close tonight. But I would still say Wendell and Alan Flanagan, that's 5 guys that when things get tough, you can turn to. Not a lot of schools have that. And to see the two biggest ones, you can do tiers or whatever amongst those people, but to see the 2 biggest ones out and to have a guy like Castleton on the other side having such a game, which we can get into a little bit too, but have him going off when Kessler's out like that and still find a way to win this game is huge to me.
No, I'm not going to argue with you there. I think it's a great point. It's super impressive. And again, if you just need to, don't forget, Alabama lost to Missouri today. We'll talk about the SEC later. Duke lost at home to unranked Miami tonight. So you don't complain about double-digit wins like we talked about against South Carolina, especially on the road, but even at home. And it is impressive. And it's like in football, you always hear, you'd rather learn from a win than a loss, right? And there's so many good lessons that our guys are going to learn from the things that Auburn didn't do well tonight, but they still had enough guys make plays when we needed it to win. So
the LSU game, we played our game almost the entire game. We blitzed them. We were running. We were like pushing them the entire time. This game, we played Florida's game and the refs game almost the entire time and beat them at their own game. It's almost like how we get funny during the Olympics when we can beat another country's team at the sport they love. We can win as many gold medals as we want, but if we beat Canada and the Soviet Union hockey, we remember it forever. We just played Florida's half-court game, their free throw game, the referees' bullcrap game, and we won. And that's bigger than playing our sport almost. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. To me, one of the big storylines of the game was Auburn loves to be the aggressive, assertive. We want to play our style. We're going to impose our will with the depth, with the athleticism, with the pace, with the energy. And the first 10 minutes, it was 24-11 Auburn, I believe, at one point early. Like before it was even, I think it was 12 minutes left in the first half, Auburn already had 24 points. And after that, Florida really dug in. Auburn helped them, but Florida imposed their will on us most of that game. And I think that's what you're getting at. And I think that's what is going to make Bruce the most angry. I think we quit being as aggressive in some ways. And again, Florida deserves a lot of credit for that. But the tempo and the pace and the style of play, I totally agree with you. Being able to win that kind of game is awesome. I do wonder if that same game flow happened in Florida, though, on the road. I don't know. I don't know if we win that one. I think we haven't talked about it, but the crowd can, huge for that kind of game where it wasn't pretty. It was ugly a lot, but they managed, and their defense, Auburn's defense just did enough. The big lead they got early and the crowd and the defense being good most of the night. It wasn't great. There were a lot of mistakes, but when you have great defense, you talked about it, USF, all these games this year, when the offense isn't there, you have that defense to fall back on. And tonight was another example of that.
I think I said maybe at the beginning, or I put it in other places, it was one of the most frustrating 12-point wins at home against an SEC opponent. And 12 points, like if you're at home and you win a game like this against Florida by 5, maybe 6 or 7 even, you can kind of like turn that around to, okay, well, if we played in Gainesville, we might lose by a point or two. Kind of, you got to know what the cushion you give to home game. You might give even more cushion to Auburn, which is amazing that we create such an atmosphere that you can kind of give us 4 or 5 points just based off being at home versus being away. 12 points was weird, but it didn't feel like a 12-point game.
It was a 1-point game at one point. It was a 1-point
finally
game.
got to, yeah, I didn't even realize it got down to 1 at one point, but yeah, the crowd was in it, was huge. I like to think that we would have lost this game if 2 students didn't get their pizza, and they were hungry, they were tired, they were standing in line all day long, but we love our students, and Matt went and got those pizzas and brought them down to Michael and that other guy. I need to look up his name. What was his name? You remember?
I'm on it.
We brought them their pizzas, and that's what it put it through. And you might say 2 students can't do that, but I think them being leaders in the student section, chock full of pizza, getting the crowd hyped in the moments they needed to, is what really brought it through.
Thomas Hill, shout out. He got in line at noon for a 7:00 game. He was towards the front. It was great to kind of meet him and meet Michael. Obviously, he was on the podcast, and you're a great guy. It's cool to see what they're doing with the jungle. And it really was a huge part of why Auburn held on to win that game, I think, and withstands that momentum. So yeah, shout out to them, and the pizzas did it. So shout out to you guys.
What's another part of this game? I guess we could talk about, I think a big moment in the game is, maybe I get you to describe how you felt about it in the stands. The kind of moment or the momentum changing, the real story of this game kind of comes down to the very beginning of the second half, when the first half felt like kind of a normal game. We got to see like real basketball. We felt like you could judge it on basketball. And the second half starts, and just describe kind of how this game completely turned on its head.
Well, let's go back first. That's what I wanted to talk about. So Auburn was up 12 with 35 seconds left in the first half. Took a shot. They kind of did a 2-for-1 thing, and LSU came down, hit a wide open three because Jaylen Williams fell asleep defensively. And so it's a 9-point game at halftime. Florida gets the ball to start the second half, and KD fouls 3-point shooter, and he hits all 3 free throws, and it's a 6-point game like that. And that's what set up the tense back and forth run. So that was the first foul, which I assume is what you were getting to. 6 fouls called on us in the first 4 minutes of the second half. Bruce really wanted a technical on that first TV timeout. He was yelling at the ref that you called 6 in 4 minutes, and 3 of them were just not good calls, which we know are going to happen. You kind of have to deal with that. The only positive was Florida had 4 in the first 4 minutes, and Auburn got in the bonus right after they did. I don't think it ultimately changed.
It wasn't just on the team issue though. Theirs got spread out pretty well. It came
True.
down to who they ended up getting on us,
True.
on top of the fact that with 16 minutes left in the second half, we already had 6 fouls on us, and it can happen. That can be a legit thing. But 2 or 3 or 4 of them were bad calls on top of it. It felt almost like the refs made one bad call and then tried to make it up with another bad call. And oh no, that one was a bad call, so we'll have to make it up over here on another bad call. And they just like it like avalanched, it felt like, for them, that because they called that other one like this, they have to call this one like this, and then they have to call this other bad. It just it was so frustrating to watch. Sonny Smith was losing it on the radio call and talking about how the only people not in foul trouble were them on the radio booth over there, and how you got to listen to the radio call to hear these tidbits from Sonny, because he's not filtered at all about what he thinks about the referees.
Yeah, he's 85. He doesn't care. He's got the right and the pedigree. It was a problem. Jabari had his second and third were terrible calls. And again, the second one happened early in the first half, and he sat almost the entire rest of the first half. And Jaylen played really well, fortunately. And then he got the third one right away. Jabari only played like 8 or 10 minutes of the first 30 in this game.
The second game in a row that he's gotten a really bad fast break foul. This man is never going to play defense on another fast break in his life, I don't think. We'll see. Maybe we'll see. On the last one was really bad at South Carolina. They called it kind of like on a landing foul almost, but I really feel like it was not justified, and that he did a really good job of staying out of the way. And then this was another one where he was right behind the guy and kind of did another similar, like, he's not actually gonna be able to get to the guy, but he's gonna like intimidate him almost. And he slapped the backboard a little bit. And I guess that's what the ref thought was him hitting him, or so. It was really bad.
It was bad.
It was bad on top that it was his third.
He's lucky he didn't get a tag the way he reacted. But I think they realized it was an iffy call, and they gave him some leeway.
And he did it. He reacted pretty badly, but luckily he ran like past everybody. I think they gave him a little bit of a lead too, because they could tell like he shouldn't act like that, but at least he's like trying to get out of the situation.
Well, you basketball refs hate being shown up, and when you run to the other side of the court, there was a guy staring at him and telling Bruce, you need to calm your guy down or he's going to get teed up. So anyway, he had a terrible one. Walker's second was really bad early in the second half. One of those in that early stretch, he had played great defense, and they called a foul on. He was guarding Castleton. He got a bad one on. It was his fault on his third, going over the back on somebody trying to get a rebound. That was his fault. And then the funniest thing, it didn't matter in this game, but the fifth foul, to me, I don't know if maybe TV makes me sound wrong on this, but it was obvious in the stands that the fifth foul called on him was on Wendell Green. And they gave it to him. Fortunately, we were up 12 at that point, and nobody cared, but Bruce was irate. He's like, if that's his fifth foul, you can look at who the foul's on at review. He wanted them to review it, and they didn't. So Fortunately, it didn't matter.
The fourth one wasn't great either. He went up and down, and the guy kind of ran into him on like a rebound or so. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember thinking like, he went straight up and down. What do you want this guy to do? So
But we knew that was going to happen. We knew it was going to happen at some point, and thank goodness. I thought Cardwell played great. I thought Jaylen Williams played great, and just it's awesome to have those guys coming off the bench.
This could get us a little bit into that. I guess we might even start talking in future podcasts about other teams' players a little more, like maybe picking like not their MVP necessarily, but who gave us the most issues. And Castleton had a great game, and we put that, I think, both on our pregame notes. It was really frustrating because Kessler was playing really well against Castleton. He like won that first bout, it felt like, where Castleton came down there and he blocked Castleton's shot, and then he went down there and backed down Castleton. I think he got a foul call from it. And it really felt like, okay, good. It's not going to be like the UConn situation where he's going to get bullied. And every time they went up against each other, I felt good about the matchup, that Kessler could do it one-on-one, and that overall we're going to win that matchup. And then get in foul trouble, but it wasn't foul trouble from Castleton going and getting him in foul trouble. It was like in different places, I felt like. And then we had Cardwell come in to do one-on-one against Castleton. And I was texting Matt this. I was frustrated because it's fine once or twice or even a third time when we left Caldwell one-on-one with Castleton and hoped that he could stop him. And he did at times earlier in the game, but then there was a big stretch there that was really tough, like midway through the second, I guess, where Cardwell was just getting abused by Castleton. He just had this jump shot that I'm not sure what you're supposed to do about. Backs him down, hits his jump shot. It's, all you can really do is start double teaming when he catches the ball so that he can't get into that whole like rhythm of doing the back down 2 or 3 times and hitting the jump shot. We never switched to it. We never did anything differently. We just left Cardwell one-on-one with him the rest of the game. It worked out for us. He didn't keep scoring. He finally did stop him on an important one late that would have been a big one. It was frustrating to watch that we didn't adjust after like the 7 or 8 points he scored in a row.
No. I'm going to say that was on purpose. It's so risky in the college game to double. If you're going to double, you better, you hate to give up wide open threes. That's the idea with an experienced senior like that. I think you're fine with him taking twos. Auburn had a great plan for him. He had 5 points and 1 rebound in the first half. He only made 1 shot, but he did get to the line. He was 8 for 11 from the free throw line for a big guy. He was fantastic, and he dominated the second half. A part of that, though, was both guys at the center position were playing more tentatively because of the way the game was called in the second half. And I think that's more your point. It forced us out of our element of being hyper aggressive, challenging every shot, going after every rebound 110%. Like that's just kind of how we play. And everybody had to kind of calm a little bit. And I don't think that's great for us, but it was great to see us overcome it.
Do you have the stat on here anywhere for second chance points? Because there was a time where
21-2.
21-2. Wow, it got even worse. We were talking about when there was a time when there was 17-2, and we didn't get beat that badly on offensive boards, right?
11-9. That's the weirdest stat I've ever seen.
Yeah, sometimes we talked about when the ball goes your way or gets your way. I don't know if this game felt like the ball went against us necessarily. It's more the refs and things like that, but it feels like every time they got a second chance, it was like we would block a shot and we'd go directly to a guy where they could just dunk it. We'd make a good play and it would just fall into the hands right where they needed to score. So that percentage cannot be a common percentage to dominate that back.
I don't think I've ever seen that before. Just to be clear, we got 9 offensive rebounds, and out of those 9 offensive rebounds, we got 2 points. They got 11 offensive rebounds. And think about the math on that. The most you could get out of 11, if you hit 11 threes after your offense, it would be 33. They had 21 points off those 11 rebounds, almost getting a 2 every time, right? That's the math. That's an insane stat. But if you want to go one under that on our little sheet, if you're watching on YouTube, 35 bench points, again, our depth, 9 points for them off the bench. And I think Florida had a lot of open looks late, and they missed a lot of them. And you have to think their guys were playing 30-something minutes, and KD played by far the most at 28 for us. So everybody else was playing 10 minutes less than Florida's players. I think our depth did play a factor down the stretch.
You could talk about a little bit of this, that the refs were a big issue because we couldn't play the kind of game we wanted to. A lot of half court stuff, a lot of fouls, a lot of stuff at the foul call line, a lot of free throws every single time there was a foul. Then on top of that, you can do a second one our best two players in foul trouble the entire time, which is different than the game being a ref ball kind of game. And then third, things just did not roll our way. Like when you look at a stat like that and see that 21-2 when our offensive rebounds were pretty similar, I guess you could almost like, that's like a stat you could actually point to where the ball was not going anywhere. So if 3 go against you and you still win by 12, it's still pretty huge. And that's why I think it's one of the biggest games. Another interesting thing where we talk about the depth, I think that a stat I was sending out there, and that I think maybe it was somebody at 24/7, one of the beat writers wrote about, that Florida was a top 30 team in the first half. There's stats for different halves, and they're a top 30 team in the first half, and so is Auburn. But in the second half, Florida is like somewhere in the 200s or something like that, or look deep 100s in the second half. They just play really bad in the second half of games. I think they were up on Alabama, I think last Saturday, and then lost by 10 or something like that. And so I think this game, I kept waiting in the second half for our depth to break through. And it might, I guess it did kind of at the end there. And that's why we ended up with a 12-point win. But it was really interesting when I thought we would just start steamrolling, and we had a 9-point lead going halftime. And I was texting friends like, guys, they're a really bad second half team. Our depth's going to show. And had the second half go that badly, kind of sucked. It really went against the stats.
I think our depth still showed. It was just different, right? We had to play a bunch of bench guys a little more than usual. And ultimately, we haven't talked about if we want to go through pregame thoughts, maybe. My first one, I'm tracking, how bad is this turnover situation? And I think my first one was, I think we've had 22 or 21 and then 17 in our first 2 conference games, which is just way too many for a team this good. And 16 is slightly better, but we still lost the turnover battle. I did want to point out, we won the rebounding battle by 8 overall, even, so we didn't get out. It felt like we got beat to some rebounds, but overall we won that. But turnovers continue to be a concern for me at home. I know Florida's a good defensive team, but it's too many unforced turnovers. And it goes back to just simple, fundamental plays. It's a fine line when playing as aggressive as we do, but that's got to keep getting better.
Yeah, I think it'll bite us eventually, where we're going to lose that, and it's going to be the reason we have to come on here and talk about our first loss on a podcast, which just got to keep saying over here. We've never had to do a loss podcast. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's because we're podcasting and delivering pizzas. It's, feel free to credit us as winning.
Undefeated in regulation, as we like to say.
So you're right. Your first one was, can Auburn cut down on the turnovers against another defensive-minded team? And so, no, not really.
They went down from 17 to 16 from last game.
Mm-hmm. We'll see how that looks away on Tuesday.
Sure.
The next one is, who wins the battle of Colin Castleton versus Walker Kessler? How do you feel about that question now?
I think the first half belonged to Kessler. The stats may not show it. First half was him. In the second half, it was all Castleton. I think a lot of that was because of the fouls and because of the issues. But I hate that we were robbed in a way of that matchup in the second half. Castleton probably would have done a lot of the same things. He's a first-team All-SEC player for a reason.
We'll never know. We'll never know if he can do that over Kessler, if Kessler can stop that. And
we do play them in Gainesville, so maybe. Okay,
fair enough. Maybe it'll go the opposite way. Maybe Castleton will have 5 fouls and Kessler will get to go thrive. Probably not, but we can dream.
Castleton definitely won overall. He played a really good second half. He's the only reason they had a good shot to win.
It's only because Kessler had to go against 3 other people that Castleton did, the refs,
Well, I did want to point out, I don't think we're going to get to this unless I bring it up now. They have a old man point guard, Appleby. He had 11 points and 9 assists. That dude got by our guards all night. We could not keep him out of the paint, and that's a problem. And I know he's really good. He's fast. He's crafty. He's been around the league a long time. I was troubled by how easily he was breaking us down in transition. And even in the half court, it just seemed like our guards, who are so good defensively and they can be aggressive on that perimeter, it seemed like constantly our bigs were having to go help for him. That opened up other guys.
And on top of that, Kessler erases a lot of bad play at times.
Sure.
You can have bad play and we don't talk about it because Kessler went and made a block, and that's what we end up talking about. When Cardwell's in half the time, you can really you can see it more. You really all right, it highlights the whole situation,
Yep.
The last one for you is, will KD bounce back in front of the home crowd?
I think so. Classic KD game. this is what you're going to get from him. And this is honestly what we need. We need him to score. I need it to be smarter, but 0 turnovers is huge for him. His energy was much better even before he started scoring. I think he just loves the jungle. I think that's a big reason why he came to Auburn from Georgia. He plays with that ferocity and that passion. And he was, for the most part, pretty solid defensively. He didn't have like the spectacular plays, but he was better on the routine plays tonight, I thought, than he has been at times.
We could almost have like an offshoot podcast just about KD's play.
Yeah.
Like we're one of the kind of podcasts that Patreon or some other thing would be like, your VIP content, we will talk another hour on KD's play. But I did want to ask you on this one. There's another thought of mine with KD. If you could go back and say, okay, you win this game is going to be a win, even if it's maybe less points or something. But instead of KD going off for 23 and all that, KD learns how to play in his role and scores like 9 or 10, but that 9 or 10 is efficient and he makes good passes. Like, I guess that's a bullcrap question, because of course you do if we win the game. But
well, I think he did. First of all, I do want to point out he passed the ball to the point guard every time Bruce asked him to today.
Okay, good. Finally,
it was very nice to see. I'm not as concerned about the roles. I think
I'm concerned. I'm concerned with how many good
not.
players we have. I know we keep winning and stuff. I want us to be the best team possible. And I think the best team possible starts getting these guys to specialize a little more into their roles.
But before this game, he had been, and I've been tracking his shots, right? That's for me, the big stat for him. He was shooting like 17 shots, 15 shots, 16 shots. The last few weeks, he's been shooting 4 and 2 and 3 since Flanagan came back. They limited Flanagan's minutes tonight on purpose, I'm guessing, whether it was from COVID recovery or from just not wanting to play him 30 minutes coming off that Achilles.
I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad the minutes he played were very important. I just there was a time where I was like, okay, but when Jabari and Kessler out, push the minutes a little more,
The role for him is when there's going to be games like this where we need him to score. And
see, here's the thing. You were saying you're talking about the tracking the shots. I just looked down the shots here. KD took more shots than anyone on the team. He took 3 more shots than anyone else. He shot 13 times. And I know some of that's because Jabari and Kessler were out. But I think that's part of the role thing. Do we want KD to be the guy that shoots more than anyone else on this team? I don't think it is. I think we want him to be more.
I don't either. But I'm not going to complain when he shoots 7 for 13 and 3 or 4. I know you can say it's because it went in or whatever. But
that's why I guess what I'm going to get, those threes that he shot, I just don't believe are going to go in more than at like a 50-50 clip,
Well, first of all, if they go in at a 50-50 clip, that's really good. But I see your point though.
But then there's other nights where he's shooting 13 times and it's -6 points off of this and he's shooting 5 of 13 instead and we lose the game, or it's a lot closer,
I just think
it's important moments when he does it too.
This team, we've talked about it. I mean, there's 7 guys, there's 8 guys who could come out and just really lead the team if needed. And the reason he shot more, by the way, he played 7 or 8 more minutes than the guys you mentioned. So part of that is being on the floor, not being in foul trouble, not turning the ball over, and at least. And the other reason I'm happy for him, he didn't give away points on the defensive end tonight that I remember, maybe somewhere, but he was more solid on a night where a lot of people were making mistakes. Let me go on a Jabari Smith rant at some point, because
I say we'll go down the list here of players and do our little hot takes on each one after my pregame notes here.
Pregame thoughts. Go ahead.
Mine is, can Walker beat Castleton? I'd say when he got his moments to actually play against Castleton, I think I would rather have Kessler out there. Like, if you could pick the player of who you wanted, I would have picked Walker Kessler. But Castleton played really well. His jump shots were really something to watch. So I'm going to say it didn't work out tonight, but it was more on the refs than it was on Castleton or Kessler. So hopefully we get to see that next game, and I can prove that thought process out if Castleton gets Kessler in trouble or something. It didn't feel like it was Castleton that got Kessler in trouble, but part of it is staying out of foul trouble. So
Castleton's better offensively. He's just a more well-rounded. He's older. He's more experienced. Kessler's better defensively and probably better defender around the perimeter. He's more agile, but Castleton's better offensively.
Yeah. The next one is Flanagan back, and can him or someone else break opposing teams' runs with a drive? Yes, thank you. Finally, it happened. This is what I want from him, is to do that when things get tough, is to keep the team level-headed when things go into chaos mode. He's the only guy on this team. Yeah, maybe the only guy on this team I feel good about. If things are in chaos mode and we need to draw back, he actually will. Everyone else on this team, I feel like will just keep pushing it, which is part of our personality as a team, and it's something we want. But it's this fine line, and maybe that's what it takes a third-year player that's potentially a first-round guy to be the kind of guy that knows when to draw it back. And so, perfect. That was a good pregame note. Thank you, me.
What was your third one?
The last one is, how does Jabari bounce back from a down game? Okay, he played when he did get to play, he played well. We're still waiting on that game where he goes nuts. He's still going up the draft boards. There's some people saying he's number 1 now and feel really good about it. I think it's 50-50 probably, because Jabari is showing some really great moments, like that 3 we saw when we really needed it. But I still want to see him dominate a game in SEC play. And the other 50% of that is probably because the other 2 guys that he's really going against, this guy from Duke, that I can't remember his name, and Chet Holmgren and Gonzaga, are not all, neither of them are also playing like lights out, like must-watch basketball. So to have a guy like Jabari, there's other college players out there that are playing better than Jabari is. Jabari's number 1 pick because of his size and the way he can do things that no one else can do. There are better college players out there. I want Jabari to be a top 10 college player along with being the number 1 draft pick.
Yeah, it's hard to judge him on tonight. I mean, obviously it's the first foul trouble of his career, especially unfair.
He was kind of foul trouble last game, right?
Not like this, not where he didn't play for 2/3 of the game until the last little bit. So he had to battle through that. I thought he was terrific when he was on the floor. And that was part of the reason we came down here, right? It was to like see him, because this is the only year you're going to get to see him. And I hate that we didn't get to see him play more. The only thing I was frustrated about, he's still got to get better with his ball handling. He's still making some really rough passes in the press break. And it always surprises me. And then he overreacted to that 3rd foul in the last 8 minutes. And he wasn't even putting a hand up on shooters, and he was leaving guys wide open right in front of where we were sitting. And like, I get that you have 3 fouls, but you're 6'10". Put the arm up. Like, don't.
There were some threes at the end that he like half jogged to that could like, we were already up like 9 or 10, but still, man, don't like let that guy hit the 3, sprint out to him. Like, right. So he still got some maturity stuff, but overall,
I was not going to give him the MVP over that alone. He's got, like, if you're going to be that guy, kind of like you're saying, I know he's going to be a great pro. He's going to be a terrific player. He's a great like representative of Auburn. He does everything the right way. But if you're going to, this is our year with you. Like, you don't have to foul him. You don't have to jump. He got in trouble jumping on a 3. That's how he got one of his fouls. That was his fault. But you only had 3. He didn't have 4.
He avoided another one too, where he got up in the air for a while. If the guy had just stayed in his spot, I think he passed the ball. Maybe it was like a pump and he passed it and the guy got out of the way from Jabari. He should have just stayed where he was and took the charge or foul or whatever you want to call there. So he got lucky on, and that was when he was already on 3 fouls, I think.
But to be clear, the 3-pointer he hit in transition when we were up 1 point, coming off the bench cold, was nobody can do that. Nobody can do
every game. That, at least we can say that, because we're waiting on that one game where like we're gonna look back in 10 years and tell people to watch that one game. But man, we have a lot of those one moments we can point to. Every game, pretty much, he has had a moment where we go, wow, I can't believe it. Actually, I can now, because Jabari's making me a believer in his own play.
Yeah. I mean, 13 points and 5 rebounds in half a game isn't bad. That's what he did.
We hold him to such a high standard. That's like crazy for how little like time he had to play out there.
Yeah.
This might be a good time to go down the list a little bit. I feel like we've talked about Walker. I feel like we've talked about Jabari. I mean, feel free to stop me on these guys if you have other comments, but I feel like we talked about Kessler and Jabari. They were in foul trouble the whole time and still tried to do the thing. Cambridge would be a good time to talk about him. Man, there was an alley-oop tonight, which it almost sucks because the game was so back and forth at that time and so frustrating at that time. We didn't get to celebrate it as much as I would like. There was an alley-oop tonight where he was flying, man. That I have not seen a guy in an Auburn uniform jump that high, I feel like.
You just take it for granted. Every game he does something athletically And it's so surprising from his frame. I'm always struck by when I see him in person. He looks like a pretty tall, skinny basketball player, and then you see him, he's just on a different level. I think it was back-to-back plays where he got behind the defense or in transition. And we've seen it over and over.
How does he do? Is it like the personnel or what? That's the second or third time this year we've seen him go back to back like that, or like in a similar like thing. I guess he just thrives when can finally break out in that fast break mode and get the play kind of sped up enough. All of a sudden, he just like goes NBA jam level on fire with the alley-oops. And man, he hit a regular alley-oop, like that was pretty good, a usual Cambridge alley-oop. And it's a lot to say it these days that if Cambridge can impress me even more than what I'm used to with him. And man, that second one, I don't know how to describe it to the podcast guys. Go online and watch the highlight. It just felt like he was like about to touch the top of the backboard almost on that one.
He was ascending. He was elevating like in midair. He's pretty remarkable. He was really quiet outside of that.
His only 2 points were from the 2 alley-oops. So
I think he gets open like that because people just forget about him because they're focused on everybody else on this team. So it's a great weapon to have for sure.
I mean, he also got the start, which I don't think we talked about, which I thought was odd after having Flanagan finally come in with the start when Cambridge was out. I know like the plan was to play limited minutes for Flanagan and then move him into the starting role like 4 or 5 games in. Yep. After we ended up having to start him anyways, and then he missed the South Carolina game, I was just kind of like, I think maybe us and the whole family were just like, okay, it's a little earlier than we thought, but it's time to just start playing Flanagan. And they didn't. I guess they probably have it written down. They probably all, if he's smart, which he is, of course, Coach Pearl and a lot of leadership, you can get emotional and make decisions that you probably shouldn't. And they probably hopefully sat down when they were bringing his plan back and said, this is what we want to do. We don't want to start him until the Alabama game or the next game or whatever. We want to play him this many minutes and we don't want to get emotional about it. So I bet this game, what happened was on their sheet, it says we weren't going to start him yet. And even though we ended up having to audible on a different night, we're not on tonight, So hopefully that was their whole part of their plan.
Well, and again, just he played more minutes than Cambridge Flanagan did. So, don't let the starting thing it's kind of like with Wendell, Wendell played 25 minutes, Zepp played 21. So, you don't have to start to play more and meaningful minutes. And that's what happened.
I think that's a good time to talk about Wendell. We can get down to him lower, but I think I saw a stat this week that Wendell's played more minutes than Zepp overall, even though Wendell comes off the bench, which I find very interesting. And I think it's perfect. I think we found a perfect harmony there. It's interesting that Wendell won that starting job so quickly after the first game, and then we put him back down again because KD played so well. But I think ultimately we've learned that Wendell coming off the bench when we have to sit a starter or two and everyone's gassed after that first 5 minutes, like a blitzing is huge, that Wendell can come in and do that. And then that Wendell's fresh going down the stretch,
He struggled 5 turnovers. He turns the ball over a lot, but he also makes a ton of great plays. He had some terrific passes. Those alley-oops to Cambridge, I think, were him. He had a great drop-off to Kessler in the lane. He continues to finish at the rim. He hit a big 3, couple 2 huge threes, 1 in each half.
He's got great touch. He had a bank floater type play tonight where the ball kind of just ended up with him near the goal. And that's so hard to hit that with a touch on the back where he was in an odd distance from the goal. He couldn't dribble in without the play being already taken over defensively. He couldn't make a jump shot. He had to make a weird bank floater and it went right in as an important part of the game. And that's the kind of stuff that's wow, Wendell's just a baller. He's just a good basketball player. And that's a lot of fun to watch when you have another guy like Cambridge is more of a good athlete that's playing basketball. Wendell might not have all the measurables, but man, is he good at basketball.
He's great. And again, just such a luxury to have him and Jaylen Williams and Flanagan tonight coming off the bench. I mean, it's just it's almost silly, but it's awesome.
How about this take with Wendell? I don't know how I feel about it. And I'd love to hear. We don't want to go too deep on this one, but I'm just getting a little too many comparisons to Jared Harper for my liking right now. I don't know if I think that it's unfair or have an exact reason why I don't like the comparison, but just fast thoughts on what you think about people constantly bringing up Jared Harper and Wendell in the same conversation.
He's short and he shoots from the logo, and people just do that. They compare to what they know. He is not, he's been terrific. I think he's been better than probably we expected in his first year coming up to this higher level of competition. But I just think he he hasn't earned Jared Harper status yet, in my opinion.
I just feel I can't put my finger on why it's not even that it's so early or whatever. I feel like they just carried themselves differently. I feel like maybe it's the leadership thing that it comes down to. Maybe the way that Jared, it felt like it was Jared's game when they played. And that's maybe just after 3 years of watching her, but it felt like at all times, Jared Harper was in charge of what was going to happen on offense. Even if he didn't have the ball, he was in charge. It doesn't feel like Wendell's in charge, right? Like he makes great plays, but it's not like he's the one like navigating everything,
Well, part of it's think about who you're surrounded by, right? You've got that team needed a guy. He was the maestro, Jared was, that third team, especially when he was a junior. Like he created everything. Yes, Bruce always said he was worth the price of admission. He started, he was experienced at this level. He had gone through the wars. Bryce was kind of a shooter and defender and kind of his own role. Chuma was so quiet and timid, and like this team, you've got some alphas that take up, and he's one of them, by the way. I think Wendell's terrific and he has a great attitude, but it's just different. It's just different.
You needed it's almost like the Beatles, not to make a crazy comparison, but Paul McCartney felt like after watching that documentary recently, it's like was trying to get the team together. Like they had a great teammates. And Paul McCartney was the guy that's like, all right, now let's actually do something. Like, please, guys, let's do something. And Jared was kind of that guy that was like, they will listen to me. I will make this happen. And Wendell does. Maybe it's just because Wendell doesn't have to do that either. But anyways, I don't want to go down too deep on that. I just keep hearing it a lot, and we'll see at the end of the year how we feel about that conversation. The next one's Zepp. Thoughts?
Zepp fan club. Quiet, 4 points, 4 assists, tied for the team lead in assists, only 21 minutes. Only 1 turnover, continues to take care of the ball. I thought Bruce made a great decision to put him in. At one point in the first half, Wendell was just not, it was right. He hit that 3 to kind of finish that run for him. But like before that, it was ugly. I mean, the offense was just stagnant. Nothing was working right. And again, such a luxury to have a just solid guy like Zepp to just, hey, get the ball to the guys you want to get the ball to. And he's not going to be as much of a playmaker for himself. But even the way the game was called, I thought he wasn't able to be as disruptive defensively as he is sometimes, which was kind of frustrating for me. I really wanted to see him in person because I really like watching him play. But another solid night, hits his free throws. He got in some foul trouble too. He ended up with 3 fouls early in the second half as well. So
I disappeared down the stretch on that one. We talked about foul trouble with Kessler and Smith because they're the great players, but Zepp got in foul trouble. We don't really talk about it much because he can disappear even without foul trouble sometimes.
And just to tie that up, Zepp's going to keep starting, but who's finishing every one of these games at point guard? It's Wendell Green.
This is an interesting one with all the foul trouble and everything. Chris Moore only played 3 minutes. At one point, I thought near the end, like, wow, Chris Moore did not play much, and he came in the South Carolina game and had a decent game and kind of made some moments happen. I was surprised that he didn't get any playing time really.
Chris Moore and Leor Berman are the 2 guys who are going to lose minutes to Flanagan coming back and Cambridge being healthy again. They both played. I'm glad they both played. I think I want to play 11 guys to keep everybody ready and in the flow of things. But those are the 2 guys that are going to lose minutes. And the reality is the people at their positions, the 2 and 3, didn't get in foul trouble. So they weren't helped by the foul trouble to get on the floor more.
Any thoughts on Jaylen? I feel like we talked about Jaylen a good bit.
Just glad. I'm really glad he had that's the best game he's had. And a part of it's the opportunity with Jabari out, but a part of it's just he was aggressive. He went to the basket like you're always asking him to. He finished. Yep. He hit the threes. He looked like himself. And I think kind of a preview of what we'll see next year without Jabari there.
Yeah, 2 games in a row, he went towards the basket and made some really good plays. And if he can do that every game, good things are going to happen because he's uber athletic, and we've missed out on that too many games in a row. Like, just go towards the basket. Something good's going to happen with him with the ball. Cardwell, I know we talked about him some, but any more thoughts on him?
Just love what he brings, man. 7 rebounds in 14 minutes. He played some crucial minutes when Kessler was out. He's the guy breaking the team in the huddle, in warmups. He's the guy pumping up the crowd from the bench. He's the guy pumping up the crowd while he's in the game. He's the guy pumping up the crowd at all times, even when we have the ball. I just really don't think seeing him in person and seeing that team function around him, it's just we love his story as a guy who's going to be a walk-on and gets a scholarship, and he appreciates the experience so much. And I really enjoyed seeing him put into a position in a crunch time second half game and he did his job. He did his rebounding energy and defense, I thought, really well. His defense in the first half on screens, when they would pick around and he would just show so hard on the ball, it was effective every time. Like, it would just shut down that play and he would get back to his man. I mean, it was some of the best pick and roll defense I've seen in a long time in the first half. It was great.
I was really frustrated this week with another podcast or beat writers or something. You can just tell that have not been watching basketball this year, but yet this is their job to talk about this kind of stuff. And so they started talking about, and they were all hating on Cardwell. And I was like, how can you hate on Cardwell for anything this season so far? He's come and played very limited minutes and done well when he does it. Like, sure, what did you expect from Cardwell? He was supposed to be a walk-on at one point. We thought he'd probably just walk on. He got the scholarship and played pretty decently last year in a year that we didn't really need a lot out of him, or the team wasn't that great. He comes in this year and just comes and puts in really good minutes. You know, sure, his offense is not great, and I'm hoping that develops over time. If we lose Kessler this year, I think we're looking at some other centers maybe that could come in and play offense, because I don't know if Cardwell's at this point going to develop that offense or not. I was hoping to see a little more this year from that, but not in a way that I'm like, he was supposed to be like that. I don't think he was ever supposed to like come in and be a guy that's going to be a dominant center that we actually want to get the ball to. He's playing way better than we ever expected, I think, when he first came in. We kind of I think him and Stretch almost like reversed roles, where I thought like Stretch was going to be a little more of a star, or not star, but like play more. And Cardwell was just be an energy guy that's glad to be there. Cardwell's actually a guy that gives us a lot of good minutes, and is somebody we need on this team right now to play those 10 minutes. And Stretch doesn't play at all. But anyways, don't hate on Cardwell. I don't know why anybody would, or why anybody would expect any more than he's doing now, or be angry at anything he's doing. So that's my rant on him.
The best thing he did, I love it. Bruce is always wanting these guys to play 2 or 3 minutes as hard as they can, and then ask me to take you out because you were exhausted. And he asked to be taken out because he was gassed.
Was that the one? I was going to ask about this because you were there. There was one play where he just grabbed onto a guard. Like what happened there? I was like, is he tired? Did he just like let that go? Maybe somebody's behind you. Like,
I don't know, but I thought Bruce was going to kill him. That's the most mad I've ever seen Bruce at Cardwell in my entire life.
I was flabbergasted. I didn't know why he did that. It was really odd. He like got beat basically by a guard and just grabbed him. And I was like, why did you do that? Like, Jaylen could have been back there. Somebody could have been back there to stop that guy. Like, it was during a run too that Florida was making, and I didn't understand like what the concept there was with him. Yeah, and I thought all I could think of was when he was exhausted. He thought that there was only him and the goal between them, that it was better to foul, but he was doing it like a 3-point line. So
yeah, it was weird because they were in the bonus, so it put them on the free throw line, and then Bruce he's like, "Oh, so you're tired? You're just going to do that?" Or I don't know what he said. What it was, you think?
Yeah, it's kind of what it felt like. It kind of felt like they were exhausted from a run, and then he just lashed out at the guy because he was about to get beat to the goal or something.
Yeah, that was bad, but I'm glad you brought that up. That was a funny moment.
Last play we talked about is Lior. I mean, not a ton to talk about, I feel like.
I think he got his 3 blocked. He took 1 shot, but like I said, him and Chris Moore are going to be kind of fighting for that 10th spot. And honestly, both of their minutes are probably going to be hurt. You know, they had the blessing of Flanagan not playing most of the first part of this year. And then Cambridge was out. So, but again, we've seen it over and over. You want those guys. There's games where you need those guys. So I'm glad to have them. Glad they both played.
Yeah. Well, we could talk about, I don't know if you have anything else to talk about this game. I want to talk about some like around the game stuff. Is there anything else that you like, a different stat or anything you really want to talk about before we move on kind of?
No, just thrilled to get the win. I texted you. It's the first time Auburn's won their first 3 conference games by double digits since 1969, 1970 season. So,
I'm surprised they even have stats going back to that. Yeah.
Just to put it in perspective, and I want to pull up
what's like in my head, the modern era of college football kind of starts in like the late or like the 1972 or so. You can start counting like stuff. Like, I feel like there's like a Ken Pom era of college basketball, like pre-Ken Pom stats. Things are a little wonky. Yeah.
I have no idea. I just wanted to throw out that. And then we're on an 11-game win streak. Don't take that for granted. It's one of the longest ones in the country.
Did anybody lose today? You know, Duke lost, but they weren't one of those teams, were they?
No. Duke lost. I haven't really paid attention, honestly.
A couple big losses today. Kansas lost, Texas Tech.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of big losses today. Alabama lost to Missouri. And I don't know what that list does. I don't know if you have that stat. I posted it on the Instagram, but I don't have it pulled up anymore. Like the teams that are also on long streaks.
Baylor's on like a 20-game winning streak. They're number 1. Yeah. They're really good. I think a great thing for us is Auburn and Texas A&M, like everybody had it, are the only two teams without a loss in league play. They're 2-0. Auburn's 3-0. So it's we already have the tiebreaker with LSU. Tennessee's already lost twice. Big.
We want to get into around the SEC just yet. Well, you want to do that, or do you want to get into that stuff around the game first?
I don't know how much around. I mean, I don't know how much you want to go through it, but
I want to hear about. I have not been to an Auburn game.
Let's do around the SEC first, and then we'll talk.
All right.
That was the main thing I wanted. Let me pull up the scores from today.
Alabama lost to Missouri today. If I was watching, the score at the end looked close, but Missouri was up 18 at one point. If you listen to our SEC preview, Missouri sucks this year. They're not good. They're only a step above UGA. It was at Missouri, which it kind of proves out you can lose away anywhere, but it wasn't a hostile crowd. There was not a ton of people at that Missouri game. Alabama is just, we've gone back and forth about this. I don't think they're that great. I think they could still beat us on Tuesday by raining. Like, they're going to hit a way better percentage of threes, and they're going to need all the foul calls, and everything's going to go wrong, because that's what always happens at Coleman Coliseum. But I don't think we were picked 5th in this league. We are now like squarely on top, and everyone in the nation knows that there's this tier where we're at, and everyone else is below it. No one's in our tier, and Alabama's definitely not in our tier. It's very frustrating. We talked about the SEC preview that all these teams get so much preseason hype, never seem to get it. And Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, they recruit off the hype. Arkansas got a number 1 class based off the hype, and they suck. And they lost again today. They're like 0-3, right? Or 0-2.
That's 1-2. 1-2.
1-2. Okay, but they've lost like 4 of the last 5 games, right?
Who are you talking about? Tennessee?
Arkansas.
Oh, Arkansas is 0-3. They lost.
0-3 in the SEC, and they had the easiest schedule. If you listen to our SEC preview, go back to this. It's still worth a listen. Every SEC game we go, it becomes less relevant, but right now it's still very relevant. Arkansas, we looked at their schedule. One of the easiest schedules we thought they were going to jump out to a big lead on everybody else. They're 0-3.
Well, I don't know if I would say we're a tier above yet, but we have a chance to prove that. Play A&M or play Kentucky, and we'll play Alabama next, and then Kentucky a couple Saturdays from now. I think
we're a tier above everybody else. And then there's Kentucky, Alabama, LSU, Tennessee.
We'll see.
And even amongst them, it's kind of Auburn, then Kentucky, LSU, then Alabama, Tennessee, and you can keep going down that way. But I think we're a top 10 team, and everybody else is like in the middle of the teens.
We'll see. We have a huge opportunity to beat Alabama. We can't wait to talk about that game on Tuesday. I don't think we want to do a ton of preview. It's going to be a great matchup. Both teams are good. You don't think Alabama's that good. I think they're dangerous. I think they're really good. If we win that game, though, look out. I'm just saying, if we go into Tuscaloosa and beat that team, because you're going to get Kentucky at home, and it's the only time we play Kentucky this year, that would be a huge opportunity to really create distance.
Kentucky at home. I guess Kentucky at home. What's our hardest game left? Alabama away, you think? Tennessee away?
Alabama away, Tennessee away, Kentucky at home, and then maybe Ole Miss, because we struggle with them all the time.
But that's it. So, like, you're right. If we can beat Alabama away, because I think Kentucky's a better team than Alabama, but we play them at home, and you've seen that home atmosphere, So, yeah, huge. Tuesday's huge.
Just to run through the scores real quick, South Carolina beat Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt had a huge win at Arkansas earlier this week. A&M is the shocker, 2-0. They beat Arkansas in a game Arkansas needed desperately.
I'm afraid we're gonna look up, and Texas A&M is gonna have like a Cinderella type year that we're like.
I think Buzz Williams is another really good coach that just happens to be in the SEC, and I'm not saying they're gonna be incredible, but they are 13-2. By the way, I mean, they've had a good non-conference. I don't think their schedule was super tough. But look, they're the only team with 0 losses next to their name besides us. So
they could be last year's Arkansas, that like makes a run in the SEC.
Kentucky took care of Georgia. Missouri beat Alabama, which we love to see. We love to see it.
Kentucky. Did we talk about last podcast that Kentucky lost to LSU? Yeah, I think we got to see that.
I think we did talk about that. And then Ole Miss beat Mississippi State at home, and LSU beat Tennessee at home. So I think every home team except for Vanderbilt won today in the SEC. So there's your quick look around.
It's tough to win away, and I'm afraid we're gonna have to do. It's gonna be really frustrating for Auburn fans because it's Alabama, but it's gonna be our biggest away. I mean, the only away game in the SEC we played so far is South Carolina. We played against USF, which was basically a home game. Shout out again to the Tampa Bay St. Pete's Auburn club, and that St. Louis game that was really tough. So go into Alabama, and we could still lose and still be a great team because it's just that hard to win away.
Yep.
It'll be frustrating. It'll be super frustrating, but
that's all I got on the SEC. I mean, but the Auburn-Alabama game is going to be, it should be hyped as one of the biggest games of the season in the conference because it is that.
And another interesting thing, if you go back and listen to the SEC preview, it's very long, but if you're as excited about Auburn basketball as we are, I'm like desperate for more Auburn basketball content of any kind. We went through it at the very end. We went through a list and went like who we want to win the SEC least the most, like who we could stomach and who we couldn't. And like amongst the tiers we just named earlier, LSU is on higher up because we hate them because of the corruption, but if they win, they have a corrupt title that no one really cares about. So we end up like kind of using that list to decide who to cheer for in these matchups when the season's still new. So Tennessee and LSU played today. We cheered for LSU for 2 reasons, because we've already beat them once, and it's good to see like a team you've beat also doing well. And then also they just go down the tier. Like if LSU wins a title, it's like a corrupt title and we can like rag them for that. If Tennessee wins a title, it's just going to suck. Like we don't want Tennessee to do
and
it.
we just really don't like Tennessee. So that's all
Justin Powell update. They lost that game against LSU today and he had 0 points on like 6 minutes. And like, he's not looking great out there, which is great.
Great transfer decision.
Yeah. He couldn't play on this team anyways.
That's all I got on the SEC.
I wanted to go over some of your, just like pick your brain a little bit on the atmosphere and everything. I haven't been to a home game, and the last home game I went to was Murray State versus Auburn with John Morant in the Final Four team. I was very lucky that my flight got all screwed up by American Airlines and all this stuff, and I had to like transfer flights and stay a night in freaking South Carolina, but I still made that game just in time. I got to see John Morant in the Final Four team before we knew that was what that matchup was. I think that ticket these days would be, if we knew that, $300 or something. But how was the atmosphere? Like what's different since the last time you've been there? 2 years ago, it's the first time you've been full crowd since that LSU Auburn game 2019.
Yeah. That was right before the pandemic hit, at least here. So it's awesome, man. If you like, the era I was there was just so bad. The basketball was bad, the atmosphere was bad. No offense to Beard Eves and my father's generation, but Beard Eves was just a cavernous place where noise did not stick. Not an intimidating place to play. And I think the coolest thing today is just we got here for lunch at like 11:30 for a 7 o'clock game. We had all day to kind of just walk around and stuff. You see kids wearing basketball jerseys going in and out of restaurants. You see families coming in for the game. It's obviously a sellout. It's full. There's just an energy around it. And it's so cool. Like the basketball IQ is better among the fans, which it used to be so bad. If you were there 10 years ago, like our crowds were just not knowledgeable at all. People have picked up on that. The students are fantastic. I mean, it really, being there in person gives you an appreciation for the student section and how much energy they bring and how they play off the players. But even now, like, it's not perfect. There's still empty seats that scholarship people refuse to give away if they're not going to make the game, which is frustrating, but it's getting better. And overall,
how do we like find a solution to that? Do we have like, I think part of this people being far away and then maybe last second they can't come. I'm hoping that's what that is, and not people willingly like just being like, screw it, I don't care to find somebody to go to this game. But, like,
I don't know.
Could we like figure out a ticketing system at the like where you could call the university office and be like, if some like get a wait list going amongst the university, put it on the university, do that to be like, get a wait list. If anybody that has scholarship seats like that you paid a bunch of money for, you just call us, even if it's 15 minutes before the game and you can't make it. You call us and we will sell your ticket to the next guy. Like
I think they tried something. I think Bruce pretty much begged. He's like, hey, we will figure something out. Like we just need, and he was kind
good.
of,
They figured it out already though. I feel like sometimes with administration, like that could take a year to do.
You can't make people do stuff, and it's been a problem for a long time. It's getting better. I think the alumni being engaged in the game is so much better. If you haven't been to a game in like 5 years, like, it wasn't raucous in the alumni. Yeah, I was in kind of the faculty section, but I had no problem. I was wearing a mask, but like I was making noise on defense, and I did not feel like a crazy person. We were right behind the student section on the side. So, but it's just a great atmosphere. The arena is just awesome. I love the history they have when you walk in. They have so much stuff about the past and traditions and football and all sorts of stuff. It's just a really good venue. You can see why all the announcers and people who come in are so impressed by it. I think it's unique. It's similar. Some people were talking this week about how it's similar to Duke's, famous.
Such a smart move to put the camera on the student section and put the students on the floor. There was some game I was watching recently, probably the Alabama one, but some other ones too, where the fans are so far back from the court and compared to us, it's just crazy. And like you see Duke and I guess I don't know why everyone else has done this with like these weird NBA, like super far back. I guess maybe it's so you can sell those courtside tickets to the rich people or whatever, but put the camera on the students. People want to see that. They don't want to see the scholarship people, and they don't want big cushioned like armchair seats on camera the whole time. It's so dumb why everybody else did that. Especially some of these arenas like Florida. We talk about Florida. They have a good student section kind of like right there, and the camera's on the other side. So you're looking at, you're barely seeing them at the very bottom of your screen. Like, how hard is it to switch the cameras around? Like,
yeah, you're right. No, it's one of the rare things Auburn's done really well from the beginning. Whoever was involved in that, the timing of it was great. It's a great facility. Suni Lee was there. She was the celebrity in for the game.
She's been going to a lot of basketball games. I'll just put my take out there. I've been texting Matt this, and there's no filter on this podcast or whatever. She's spent the last like 6 months in LA. I follow her on Instagram, and she's like out there doing Days with the Stars. She seems to like hanging out with the TikTok stars and different people. I'm just keep waiting for her to transfer to UCLA. I think I saw that she's dating a USC football player. And there was a lot to be following for like a 19-year-old gymnast girl, but she's very famous. And so I keep waiting, like, enjoy the season you have with Suni Lee, because I think there's a good chance she's going to be like, wow, I have to go to all these like Today Show things and also flying around the world to go to this stuff. If I just played gym or did gymnastics at UCLA or USC, I would just already be there and not have to fly back and forth to Auburn, Alabama, which does not have, I don't know where she even flies into, Montgomery, and then rents a car.
Private jet in Auburn.
You might be right. She might have a private jet to do all this kind of stuff. But anyways, enjoy it while you have it. I'm glad to see that she's going to things like the basketball games and stuff, because that like solidifies that. Because I think in another 2 or 3 years for the Olympics, because the Olympics actually only have 3 years in between this time.
2.5
huge
from now.
It'd be huge to have her back again representing Auburn, doing that, especially with gymnasts who only have like a 4 to 8 year span to do this kind of stuff. It was kind of crazy. Like, it used to be you had one Olympics pretty much. Sean Johnson, Nastia Lukin, some of the ones in the past. So hey, that's a long rant on Suni Lee, but hopefully she gets to represent Auburn again in the future.
My only point is, if you do the math, there's no way she's doing more than 2 years anywhere, because I from what I understand, I'm not a gymnastics insider, but I'm pretty sure there's a pretty big lead up to the Olympics and training and focusing. And like you said, it's 2024. We're already in 2022. I think the max you get out of her is this year and next year.
Gotcha. Can you tell on campus? I think this is interesting. When we were in school, you could, if you weren't a basketball fan or whatever, you wouldn't even know a basketball game was going on that day, pretty much, unless you were like right there in front of Auburn Arena. Is there like an atmosphere now kind of in downtown and different places, like today's a game day?
Yes, it's way more subdued. Obviously, it's just when you subtract the students out from the total number of people in the stadium, it's 7,000 people. So traffic's way better. It's not, but I saw Florida fans walking around campus today. I saw a lot of couples and families who were in town clearly visiting. Students start back on Wednesday this week, so they're still not even in school. So it's pretty quiet for the most part around town. But you could tell, and it is totally different. And it was full. And the great part about the arena too, even if you're standing room only at the very top level, there's just not a bad seat in there because it's so small and it's not that tall, even from the top. If you've ever been up in that upper level, it just makes sense on so many levels. And I'm glad we have it. I'm glad we didn't get greedy with like trying to get more seats just for the financial piece, because this is what creates.
I think we almost got lucky that we had we were so bad at basketball when we were building it that they were like, don't build too many seats because it's going to look bad. And now we've kind of almost like lucked into like a really great, like can't miss like atmosphere and like real intimate, like almost like rock star level people trying to desperately get tickets,
It's great. And this game wasn't a great example because there weren't many big runs back and forth. It was so choppy, but even that first little 10-minute stretch, you can just tell that place is ready to explode every time you get a stop on defense and it starts going the other way. When we hit them with that first punch early in the first 8 or 10 minutes, it's loud. It's very electric is kind of the word. It's like everybody's paying attention, I guess, which sounds obvious, but I promise you, when I was there, at least, not everybody's paying attention to the game all the time. And now it's like can't miss TV. So when you're there, it feels like
say
everybody's
you're a little more of a basketball nerd, and even in football, we're a football fan base, but there's still tiers of kind of people that are into Auburn football. There's like friends of people that are there, and like you said, like this is the most frustrating tier is the people that care a lot but don't really know what's going on very well, and they'll yell, "Screw Zima!" Who's that? Zimba, screw Zimba. And it was like it was a wide receiver that jumped off sides or something. Those are the most frustrating people, the ignorant but loud, and I can only imagine, like, if that's how it is in football, it's got to be 1,000 times worse in basketball. People just like I'd rather them be into it than not into it, but like it's so frustrating when one of your people is yelling an ignorant statement at the top of their lungs with anger, and you want to be able to like, no, man, actually, that's not how it is. But I mean, like, I don't know how to so anyways, do you feel like overall you can tell the difference in the stands when a certain play happens or whatever, that people kind of can tell a little more what's going on?
Absolutely. It is so much better than it was 5 or 10 years ago. If anything, I think Auburn people in basketball are a little quick to get mad at the refs and on bad calls. I think if you watch basketball enough, that's part of the game. It's going to happen. Tonight is one of the rare nights I was kind of upset about a couple, because I felt like there were some really weak calls on us at bad times, and I didn't think it was consistent throughout. And people were rightly mad. I think sometimes we can get a little, what's the word? Like we become victims. We're like, oh, they're taking it from us again. This team's so good.
We are not alone for sure, though. That like if you go on Reddit, every post game thing almost is saying screw the refs or whatever. So
everybody hates
we're not alone. We're not alone, and I'm cool with it at home. Boo a foul call, no matter what. Who cares? Like, I don't think anyone's really like holding against a fan base when they boo a foul call, even if it's the right call.
There were a couple calls tonight that looked really bad live, that when the replay would show and you'd see it, like 90% of people they would calm their boos down because they saw
the difference, right? That's the difference. If the foul gets called, you can boo, but when they show the replay, there's always this difference when it's justified sometimes. I almost love it when it happens. I do think it affects the game when there's a bad foul call and they show that replay and the stands like erupt even more than they did before. And you like, there's been times, the most amazing times, or when that happens around a commercial break and they're booing, like when the commercial break starts and they come back from commercial break and the stands are still letting the refs have it. And you're like, yes, please let them have it. And that's the difference though. Because if someone does that and the foul is actually all right, it makes the fan base look really bad. But if it's right, it's amazing. It's a great atmosphere thing. And you can tell, like, as much as the refs try to keep that stuff out of their heads, it matters.
It's definitely better. It's awesome, man. We've encouraged people, go see this team. If it's on the road, tickets are still really cheap in Athens and Knoxville. If you can get to a home game, some of the weeknight games are a little cheaper. If you can take a day off and go. Jabari is a special player. This team is kind of a special group. And even tonight, in a lot of messiness, you see the pieces are so strong and like special. It's a special group. It really is. And I was talking to some students when I was giving out the pizzas, and we were, everybody's just kind of on edge. Like, is this team really as good as it feels like they are? Like, it feels like they're really good.
Not to bring up the F word. I think we're going to start calling it the F word, but does this feel like the 2010 F word season? Does it feel like had that atmosphere? Like,
no,
not people could tell it was like a special get in here kind of thing.
Maybe like, I think we're at like South Carolina level 2010, 4-0.
Feel that.
Like it's not there. I think because the tournament, if you're smart, the tournament is such a crapshoot. You want to get in, you want to get a good seed and do your best. But like, who knows? The best team in Auburn history, #1 in the nation, won the SEC, whatever, in '99, made it to the Sweet 16 and lost. It can happen.
That's a good point right there. I'd like to say to people that are casual fans that are coming in, and even not casual fans, there's too much pressure on March to be like the thing you're talking about all year long. If you want to like truly enjoy college basketball, you can't put everything on March. That's the one flaw of March Madness ultimately, is that like a lot of the time, the best team does not end up winning the national championship. And so enjoy like the runs you make during the season. Don't put all the pressure at the very end. If you win a conference championship, enjoy the heck out of that. If you got to be a top 5 team, a top 10 team, enjoy the mess out of that, because that's the real college basketball that you can really enjoy. March Madness is almost for like not casuals, but like it's not amateur hour necessarily, but like, you know how it is. The whole nation gets into March Madness and they have no idea about college basketball any other time during the year. So enjoy this part of it if you really want to embrace college basketball.
You don't get a pass to the Final Four because you're really good. And the Final Four is really hard to get to. We'll talk more about that. But you're right. We've talked about this is a ring-chasing team. This is a team we thought going into the year that they can chase championships. They've got a regular season they're going to chase. They've got an SEC tournament they're going to chase. And then if they're lucky enough to be in the big dance, they'll take their shot then.
And chaos gives and chaos takes.
Yep.
We got given on the Final Four with the chaos, like that team. As much as we like to talk about the Final Four team and oh my God, this and that, we knew the potential was there. But there was some really frustrating play during that conference year. And we kind of got chaos gave us a chance at the Final Four there, and we took advantage of it. At any moment, you can have a team like this that's great, and then chaos takes, just like that 1999 team that only went Sweet 16. Like, we should enjoy the mess out of what we have now, because you don't want to delay your gratification for this team until March, or like put that as like the ultimate for this team. This team can still be the team that we look back on in 20 years, or a team we put on a banner somewhere. And it doesn't have to be because they won all the way in March.
When Auburn basketball wins anything, it is a noteworthy historical achievement. So I'm only concerned about the SEC regular season championship. Those are the hardest to get, honestly. And I am thrilled being 3-0, taking care of our business so far, and just putting ourselves in a position. Yeah, if we beat Alabama on the road, we're going to have a lot of fun Tuesday.
I want to give some shout outs here in a second, but first I want to do one more thing about the atmosphere stuff, or two more things. You got to see all the students lined up outside. Anything interesting about the students, or one thing actually too, sorry to bring this up too. If you don't follow us on Instagram, you might be missing out on what we're talking about with the pizza thing. We did a pizza giveaway to the students in line. We want to give pizzas out to everybody waiting in line or whatever. A couple people got pizzas. Check out the Instagram so that you can get on top of that kind of stuff. If we go to another home game, we might do it again to just give people that listen that are students free pizzas. So anything interesting about the line?
Just cool, man. The guy, like I said, the guy at the front, been there since noon for a 7 o'clock game for Auburn basketball. If that doesn't tell you, if you were from a prior generation, you know how crazy that is. The line stretch, if you know that area, almost all the way back to like Donahue, going back past that new where a lot of the not restaurants, but the on-campus dining center is right there, and towards the ROTC building, the Nichols Center that runs.
It goes back that way. Okay.
So it curves back from the student entrance all the way back. And I was there at 4.
I was wondering about that, why they chose to do that. I'm sure they've organized it at this point. I would almost want to U-shape it back towards the other Auburn Arena parking lot, just because that way you have like a surrounded kind of thing. And if you want to put like the band in the middle of that, or the cheerleaders in the middle, you could do like some pregame stuff. Did they do anything like that?
I was only there for like 30 minutes. I'm surprised they don't curve the line back through the village. There's all those dorms. You could just
back the other way.
The other way. And I think they try to keep that the parking lot clear for regular people to come in and shop. There's
they have to go to the box.
Auburn team shop over there and box office.
You still have it surrounded on 2 sides, but hopefully maybe for some of the bigger ones, they'll have like some entertainment in the middle or something. I could see them putting up a screen so you could watch some other games or something. So hopefully people will call for that or whatever. The other one was there any like interesting like moments in Auburn Arena that were like, whoa, I didn't know that cheer existed, or I did like stuff that maybe I don't know about. Like when they do this, they go crazy. I know they do like a paradise thing.
I think the only thing that for me, granted, I went a couple years ago, and I've been kind of to a game or two every few years, so I haven't had a long gap without it. The thing that stood out to me, we've always been for the F word, other sport. We always have these intro videos that are just massive, and they bring you goosebumps. The band has one. You have all these videos. I mean, they played 4 or 5 during this game. 3 of them they had one before the team ran out. They had one before lineups. They had one like right before tip-off. So just the multimedia piece, obviously our marketing and our video people do a great job. To me, that was one of the noticeable. It's gotten so much better. Obviously there's great content over the last few years to put in videos and kind of recall the past, but also have these great players that you're highlighting. It makes it a little easier. But I just think we're so much better as a basketball school at knowing how to like engage the crowd at the right moments, from the PA announcer to the videos to the lights to just a lot of stuff. They do a cool light thing. My dad enjoyed in the Auburn Athletics app, you just go and press a button and it does a rhythmic light flashing on your phone.
Oh, that's fun.
And people who did it, when the lights are off, they're doing starting lineups. It looked pretty cool. I didn't get a video of that. So they're doing cool stuff like that to engage people, and it's creating the atmosphere. And again, you just give credit to the students. Like, I was nervous coming back from halftime because a lot of people weren't in their seats yet, and they played a video with like 30 seconds left on the countdown clock, and the students stood up like almost in unison. Like, they know, like, okay, we're about to go back to battle. They stood up. They were loud right away, even though the second half didn't start out great for us. Like, it was cool to see again that everybody's like in the moment, it feels like, because this is must see, in real life basketball.
It feels like the students too, I wish we could go full Duke level, but that takes years and years of being great, that like the students there know to be jumping and yelling every defense possession. That's what makes that place so intimidating. And it's always frustrating, or used to be frustrating kind of, when the other team would go on a run, and that's when our fans would get the most quiet, when the other team is like, no, that if we could do, I know it's tough because we want to be able to like go nuts every time we do something. The most intimidating, it's kind of frustrating when the most intimidating part of your atmosphere is when you've just like gone on a like 7 or 8 or 10-point run, and then your crowd's going nuts. It's helpful. You need that to like go on those kinds of runs. But if you could reverse it, you almost would. Like, if they're going on their 7, 8, 9, 10 run, go even more nuts, because we need you to help stop this run or whatever. And luckily, it seems like the students are starting to get that a little more. That I could watch it and see like some people being like, "Come on, guys! Like, this is the team needs us."
I would say that is a huge point. I'm glad you brought that up. Bruce and Cardwell on the bench he at points when he's not in the game, right? He's like, okay, let's go. And Bruce at times, well, it's annoying that he has to get some of those scholarship people to stand up, but he does. He knows the right moments to do it. And I would say even the students, I was impressed. That's the first time at an Auburn basketball game that I've felt anything like what you're describing, and it was tonight. There were moments when it was ugly and we weren't scoring and it was getting close. It felt like some people, it would rally, like, all right, get a stop right here. Let's get a stop. We need to buckle.
I love that, Bruce. It annoys me when some coaches try to act like they're above the atmosphere. No, we're just doing our technique. We don't worry about what's going on anywhere else. Bruce doesn't play that game. Bruce like gets the crowd into it and stuff. And I absolutely love that. I think it's been a huge part of the arena atmosphere everybody talks about. It's annoying when there's coaches that are like, I don't think about the fans. I don't think about anything. It's like, come on, you can do both. You get paid a lot of money. You can figure it all out. Yeah. Bruce
is so good. The only other thing I thought about, Auburn came out out of like their pregame meeting or whatever. They came up and do their layups before lineups were announced, and they come out. Florida comes out. Everybody boos Florida, and then like 30 seconds later, Bruce walks out. Everybody's like, Bruce. So it's like a second boo, but it's for Bruce. It's not booing. So I still, every time they show him, walking out, he's pumping. He makes sure at the end of every game, after they do their like prayer circle at the end, that they wave to the fans, they acknowledge the fans, they say thank you for coming. Tonight was a little more like less rowdy because I think the game was just like, ugh. I think they were all.
It's
glad
weird, right? We won by 12 points, and it still felt like a little like.
Yeah. It wasn't a super celebratory like when it got to the end.
It should have been, but it was a weird game.
It was in the key moments in the last couple of minutes, like when we put the game away.
We've gotten too used to with this team, like having our steamrolling moments and like finishing off these games with spectacular stuff, to have a game that's kind of a nail biter throughout in frustrating terms. Like, it's tough to have those big moments. Even when we had our big alley-oops, it still was like amongst some weird stuff.
Yeah. Well,
some shout outs here from Instagram. We want to get people more engaged on Instagram. It's just like kind of our way we communicate. We have a YouTube channel. I think Matt might start a Twitter, or just hit him up on Twitter. But this is kind of the way we communicate. So it's nice when anybody hits us up or whatever. Michael got a pizza. Shout out to the student section again. He's the vice president. He was on the podcast at one point on the SEC preview. Check it out. Some more stuff that like you can listen to at any time. Thomas got some pizza. That's great. This guy, let's see what his name is exactly. Matt, I believe, Matt Moskal, had an amazing old school jersey he showed me. I put on the Instagram that I wanted to get the tiger stripe jersey that Chris Porter was wearing in 1999. And where can I find that? And he sent me this great old school jersey here that you can see
Wow.
on the
Look at
YouTube.
that.
He's got Cliff Ellis signed it on there also, and it's got the tiger stripes, 1999 jersey. So he got it for $30 on eBay, which I'm super impressed by. I want the other one with the blue stripes on it, but still cool. There's a guy, Bryce, who's not actually our friend necessarily, but he posted this great little rant I have here on my personal Instagram. They put Whataburger on the corner of College and what's that other street, Glen, or not Glen?
Oh yeah, it's open by the way.
Magnolia, College Magnolia, and it's where we roll Toomer's Corner. And it used to be the Vault, or also Bodega Bar. Great place. I used to love going after games with my friends and like dancing and having a great time and watching people roll while I drink a beer. And it's just like there's only so many bars in Auburn, and that went out of business, or not, didn't go out of business. It's like everything in America. Rent prices go up, greed goes up. The only people that can afford it are these huge corporations and chains. Pyology came in there because the Vault and no bar could make enough money there to pay for the rent they wanted in that spot. So of course, the only place to do it. Same thing in New York. I live in New York. Ton of great mom and pop shops and small businesses get replaced by corporations because the rents go up, and the only people that can do it are these huge corporations. Anyways, Pyology took over. That sucks. How many pizza places do we need? There's like 5 pizza places downtown. Now it's a Whataburger. I know some people like Whataburger, especially Texans. It's just really annoying that all these small businesses are going out, and that it could have been a great moment like we had. And I think a lot of younger fans don't understand, or younger students, that you could have sat there and had a beer with your friends and like a cool porch with a live band while people rolled Toomer's Corner. But now you can have a drunk burger at Whataburger instead of McDonald's. But anyways, that's a long rant. But Bryce made a funny meme, one of those deep fried memes about how you lost to the former location of the Vault. It says, all these deep fried Twitter memes, you lost to the former popular Auburn bar, the Vault, formerly known as Bodega. This is now for some reason a Whataburger, which is only slightly better than Pyology. Freaking true. So frustrating when people like I don't know who owns that rent, but we all knew even when we were in school, the Bodega changed the Vault, and part of the Vault was always on the borderline because whoever owns that building just kept jacking up the rent constantly, and no one can make a profit there. So that's a long rant. I love
Auburn economics with Jackson Garrett. Thank you for tuning in.
It's such a cute small town. I've moved very far away, and I love being able to come back, and it still has its same character. And it's just gonna be really frustrating when Toomer's Corner gets taken over by CVS and Walgreens, and you go to get your lemonade, but you have to go in and have a CVS Rewards member card because that's how the world goes.
All right, that was fun. It's late. My dad's probably gonna kill me because we're still awake. Do you want to?
Do you want to bring him in for the?
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts to share on? So my dad was here in the late '70s when Sonny Smith first started.
First and second year,
he was at Auburn. Obviously, we had him on again. We're gonna plug that every time that we got to talk to Sonny Smith. So listen to that. And then you've been to the arena before, but for like graduation, not for a basketball game. So. You said you went to a decent amount of games when you were here for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And
Best Beard Eves atmosphere you can remember.
Oh, that's a long time ago. Now, you have to remember the late 70s, 78, 79, 80. It was the doldrums of Auburn sports. The football team was on probation. We had I can't remember the coach's name, but anyway, basketball. Sonny was just started there. I think they had a 13 and 19 season and 10 and 18 or something. But I mean, it was losing season. But the games were always fun. But I felt like I was transported into the ACC tonight. I mean, it was very cool. I was never a big fan for the arena, but I can see the value of the arena and the fact that the fans have bought in and, bought into what Coach is doing. It was a very exciting atmosphere. It was actually, because, I mean, you go to back in the day when I would go, you'd sit there and you'd watch the game, you'd cheer, but you'd be talking to people, and you were not really focused on the game. Again, the nature of the game has changed a lot since then too. You didn't have the 3-point shot. You had no time clock. So, I mean, you'd have keep away going on for 5 minutes, and you're sitting there talking to friends because it's kind of boring. So the nature of the game has changed a lot. But no, I felt like I was watching an ACC game today, watching Duke, North Carolina. It was a very neat environment to see the students get energized and really into it and push the team along. It was very special. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Mom. Merry Christmas to us. That was our Christmas gift from my mom. So shout out to my mom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you get to see any great players or anything while you were there? Any great Auburn players or great opposing players?
I looked at the rosters before I got on here, and none of the names ring a bell. I mean, all the players like Barkley and them came after I left.
What about like other teams? Were there any other teams that you remember late 70s? Other players?
Not really. I mean, Kentucky was always very dominant at the time. Alabama had a decent team too.
Do you remember the first moment you heard the name Charles Barkley? What was the first moment?
Oh, I was in the Army at that point.
Somewhere.
You had a newspaper. You said, "There's Charles Barkley kid. They said he scored 20 points. That sounds pretty good."
Yeah, I think I probably was in Korea at the time. So shout out.
Nice. All right. Well, Matt, you got anything else for the podcast?
No, man. Enjoyed it. And thanks for everybody for the support. It's been really cool. Cool to meet some people today on campus. We're going to keep doing this live reaction. And man, we got a big one coming up Tuesday at Alabama. So I'm excited for that one already.
Can't wait to talk about it. Hope people are going. If you're going to the game and you listen to the podcast, send us some pictures. Let us know what you're up to. War Eagle, man.
War Eagle.